Arch, are you there?
Yes.
Oh, good, because I I thought I'd lost my Skype connection. Arch Crawford, Crawford's Perspectives. How are you doing, young man?
Very well, thanks.
Very good. Listen, the question that I have for you from one of our listeners to start off the show is, what is your feeling here on two markets in particular, starting with the stock market, followed by gold and silver? What is your opinion?
Okay, well, the stock market, the index numbers keep rising and rising and rising, but the number of new highs keeps dropping and dropping and dropping. So I say that the internal statistics do not support the price level, but so I'm expecting some kind of pullback this summer, and I don't know if it will. The biggest thing that's happening this year in the sky is that solar eclipse that goes all the way across the United States, and that's August 21st, and I don't know if that will be like the bottom of a market or the top of a market short term, and then but that we should get some kind of I wrote in the last letter that I was expecting a 4.5 to 8.5% decline sometime this summer, but I thought we would be higher as we move into December, January. That I expect the long-term peak to be December, January.
Okay. So you believe this this advanced decline line is giving a warning sign that not everything is correct?
Well, that sometimes has a lead time of about, 6 to 9 months.
Oh, wow.
How long has that been going on?
Yeah, that's for sure. Arch, what's the effect of these ETFs on the stock market? I saw something on Bloomberg over the weekend that there was only about 15% of the market was based on actual stock picking anymore, that it was pretty much all related to all algorithmic trading in these ETFs. I mean, do you have an opinion on that?
Yeah, I wrote that up a couple of months ago. That a few years ago, the public activity in the market was drifting lower and lower, while the algorithmic trading was rising and rising, and that in I think '07 it was the algorithmic trading went up to 70%, and by 2012 it went up to 84%. Algorithmic trading, 84%. And then wow. I read that the following year, about 2013, that the bids and asks, not the volume, but the bids and asks were running about 94% from algorithmic trading.
Wow.
So I think that's a whole lot more effect than the ETF situation, but it is a warning sign that if and when things ever go wrong again, that it could be extremely dangerous.
Yeah, because I'm afraid that
will shut down, and the individual stocks. It happened fairly recently that there was one day that some individual stocks went down to a penny and all the way back up within, 20 minutes or an hour.
I've heard that. I remember that. That was some of those trades were disallowed or something, weren't they?
Yes.
Yeah.
But, that kind of glitch is not supposed to happen in the modern era, but
yeah,
I think that situations are more dangerous than they ever were.
Yeah, I think Buffett referred to them once as the weapons of mass destruction, and I think there might be something to that. I'm afraid that we're going to get into a situation like we had with long-term capital back in '97, where they had all these Nobel Prize laureates, and all of a sudden, they didn't realize that the market had two sides, and that's what caused that that big sell-off in '97, and they had to be rescued by Greenspan. at the Fed. So I don't know how they could rescue all these little companies that have these algorithmic trading things, but that's neither here nor there. Okay, let's move on to the gold and silver, Arch. What is your feeling here? Because it looks like we've had some type of a breakout here from this $1,200 level in gold.
It does. Well, actually, right now the level is back where it was in the end of February, which means it could be a balanced situation that's sideways. But we do have it back above the 200-day and then back above the 50-day moving averages. And that's the breakout here in the last day or so of trading. And that's a very, very positive sign if it can break some other critical levels. I think in the last letter, I said it would help to close above 1280 and then 1300. It would hinder by dropping below 1215 and then 1180. So I would still stick with that. I'd like to see it above 1280 and then above 1300. And then I think the sky's the limit. But right now, we are in the middle of a trading range that's lasted all year.
Okay, we have a question.
Although the action is good, it's still in the middle of that trading range.
Yeah, we've had lower tops and lower bottoms too, so it's still in a longer-term downtrend. Arch, I don't know if you can answer this question or not, but one of our listeners is asking us. It's about Bitcoin. Do you know anything about that, or do you follow it at all?
I was reading today that some limitation on Bitcoin was raised, and that it went up 50% this week.
Wow.
That's huge moves, and some things are going to be allowed that weren't allowed before, or they got some big deal passed in in the legal situation.
Wow, that's really 50% in 1 week. What's the price? Is it above 3,000 again?
You can try that. That's the wildest thing going on these days.
No. I like the slow stuff. I used to like pork bellies because they were wild, but compared to Bitcoin, pork bellies is like trading a AAA corporate bond. This is really crazy. Arch, can you believe? Arch and I are both the same age, folks, but he's actually 3 months older than me, born on April the 17th. But let's stay with us, Arch. We'll be right back. Arch Crawford of Crawford Perspectives, Tucson, Arizona. We've got a few bills to pay. Okay, we're back, folks, with Arch Crawford of Crawford Perspectives. And Arch, we've got an unusual question. The question is, who are the most colorful people you've met in your 60-plus years of being in the market? Can you answer that question, or has there been too many of them, or not enough? How do you feel about that? Well,
I have met an awful lot that were very interesting. I had a mentor in Wall Street. His name was Basil Constant, and nobody will know who he is, but he was a personal mentor and took me through psychological changes and thinking changes and all kinds of changes. And he is the person who was closest to me in that regard. The second most that was personally close to me was David Williams, who influenced me in the
astrologer, Commander Williams?
Analysis by Astrology.
Dr. Commander Williams from Arizona?
Yeah.
Wow, I think he passed away in Scottsdale, didn't he, back in 89 or 90? He was
living in Florida. He was always a director of the American Federation of Astrologers, which is in Scottsdale.
Yeah, I met him once.
Florida.
Yeah, he was a real gentleman, that's for sure. Yeah, he was. He's in fact that book that he did.
Here's a funny story, okay? I left the University of North Carolina and went to work for Merrill Lynch in Raleigh, North Carolina, and I was marking a chalkboard and getting blue with the Gestetner copier.
Oh my gosh!
Blue ink on everything.
Yeah.
And this is a long time ago. And there were a couple of kids that would run around in there every now and then, 2 or 3 times while I was working there. Well, the younger one was Louis Bacon.
Oh, my gosh.
And the older one was Zach Bacon III, and Zach Bacon I was my boss, who was the office manager of Merrill Lynch in Raleigh.
Wow, these are some of the biggest names in the hedge fund business, aren't they?
Yeah, and Zach the third called me and ordered my letter for Tudor Jones the day after the crash in '87, which I had predicted perfectly.
Yes, I remember that because we were chatting about it at the time. I certainly remember that. I was in Arizona, and you were in New York at that time. You didn't come to Tucson until '97, wasn't it, Arch?
96, right.
96, yeah, I remember that. Yeah, because Mark Douglas came in '97, so we had our own little trading group here for a while with Bob Miner and a whole bunch of other folks. One other question.
Business, my favorite, Joe Granville was a personal friend.
Oh, I know that, yes.
And, of course, what's his name that just died a couple of years ago? Joe died at 90 about 3 or 4 years ago, and Richard Russell died at 91 3 years ago. And they both worked until the last week of their lives.
Yep.
And they were both market letter writers, and they enjoyed what they did, and I enjoy what I do. And I plan to last that long, too, which is doing the letter another 15 years.
Well, you take. Well, I hope you do, Arch. That's for sure. I remember Granville. Boy, what a colorful character. Folks don't remember him because it was back in the '70s. But when Joe Granville talked, it would move the stock market 1%, almost on cue, wouldn't it?
Sometimes he did that. Yeah.
It sure did.
I would love to have a copy of his talk. If anyone ever has a copy of his speeches, I would love to have one.
Yeah.
The other, another very close personal friend was Frankie Joe, who was.
Oh yeah, no one knows him. Tell the story about him because that's a very interesting story.
Well, he grew up on the streets of New York as an orphan, and a trader took him under his wing and taught him what he knew. And one day the trader was off somewhere, and Frankie, some news hit or something, and Frankie saved him a whole bunch of money. He later became the main trader for Interstate Securities out of North Carolina, but the office was on Broadway, Lower Broadway in New York. And Frankie made, I think, $20 million for the company and $20 million for himself. And he got a real big name. I was trading in Carl Icahn's office because a broker from there was in the Cycles group in New York, which I used to attend. And that's another interesting character, Carl Icahn. I sat next to him one time when he bought a whole bunch of options on IBM at 200, and then he drove the stock through 200, and then he sold the options, and then he sold the stock. This is all in an hour or two.
Yeah. Hey, Arch, didn't Frankie Joe's, he died rather mysteriously, didn't he?
Yeah, they say he died of a heart attack, but I think he didn't.
Yeah, because I remember, and he was quite young, wasn't he, like 32 or 33? He was a very young fellow.
I don't remember his age. I remember it was 84 or 85 or 86.
Yeah, it was right in that area, yeah.
And he had been written up by Barron's several pages, and he was on their yearly thing, but he said, I'm a short-term trader. It could change in 10 minutes.
Yeah, well, that's what he did, but he was very good at it. That's absolutely for sure.
Man, and a generous man, and a good man.
Mm-hmm. I remember meeting Carl Icahn, too, and he was a really nice fellow. You'd never know the guy was worth as much money as he was. He was so humble and just very gracious. The people that are really successful have a tendency to be like that, and Carl Icahn is certainly And it's certainly like that. Arch, I have a question.
I made 21 passes at options without a loss, and he offered me a job as a trader. But he screamed at his traders all the time.
Oh, yeah.
And his head trader introduced me to Frankie Joe.
Oh, my goodness.
But
Arch, how would the folks reach you? We've got about a minute before we have our ending here. So what's the bits? Crawford Perspective is www.crawfordperspectives.com.
Yeah.
.com. Okay.
You can just Google Arch Crawford, and that'll get it to you in the first one or two.
Okay, and you're still doing your. Of course, I get your newsletter every month, and it's something that I look forward to. Do you have any comment about what's going to happen on this eclipse here that we have on the 21st of August?
Well, Russia had an eclipse that went all the way across Russia, and 4 or 5 days later we had a Mars-Uranus opposition, and they attacked Georgia, the country, not the state. Mm-hmm. And this one is going all the way across the United States, and within a couple of hours there is a Mars-Uranus aspect. So I'm saying that whatever violence could occur would be in short order. But then again, eclipses have a time frame of operation from like a year before to a year after.
Stay with us, Arch. We'll be right back. Stay with us. Okay, we're back, folks, with Arch Crawford of Crawford Perspectives. Arch, would you continue on about this eclipse that we're having on the 21st and how it relates to this Mars-Uranus thing that we were talking about with Russia that you were mentioning? Are you saying that we're probably going to have some type of an armed conflict?
I wouldn't doubt it. I think we're building up to an armed conflict that some people in the government want it, but I'm not sure if Trump will go along with it or not. Mm-hmm. But there is a segment that like to take us to war. The other big thing about an eclipse, you remember Princess Diana died on an eclipse. I think it was 24 hours prior to a solar eclipse. And I said in the newsletter, September 1 to 2, Venus-Saturn-Pluto combination and new moon partial solar eclipse, tragic love, socially awkward, and that's the day she died.
I remember that very much. It was August 31st. I remember that. That's a very important day for sure. And you did have that. You had a couple in there. Well, you've had quite a few over the years because you've done it so many times. Arch, I want to thank you for being on the show today, and we'll have you on again soon. Okay, my friend?
All right. I'll try to remember when 9:30 is.
Okay, buddy. Listen, thanks a lot, folks. Arch Crawford of Crawford Perspectives, and we appreciate you being with us here at TFNN.